You know, every single living thing on this planet, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, is built from a cellular blueprint. But here's the incredible part. There are really only two master plans. Just two! Today, we're going to dive in and compare those two blueprints, prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. So let me ask you this. What could you, a mushroom popping up in a forest, and the bacteria living in your gut possibly have in common? It sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But the answer is actually the most important concept in all of biology. It's the fundamental building block of life itself. So here's our game plan. First, we'll get the basics down and talk about life's fundamental unit. Then, we'll get into the two ancient blueprints that all life follows. We're going to zoom right in on the number one biggest difference, the nucleus, and then we'll do a head-to-head comparison of their internal parts. And finally, we'll explore why this split created two totally different but, equally successful ways to do life. All right, first things first, before we can really compare these two incredible designs, we need to be on the same page with a few key terms. This is basically the language of life we're talking about here. Our whole conversation today takes place in the world of biology, which is, of course, the study of all living things. From the tiniest cell to entire ecosystems, this is where we're playing. And at the very heart of biology is the cell. Now, this definition, this is the big one. A cell isn't just a passive building block, no way. It's both the structural and the functional unit of life. Think about it like this. It's both the brick and the brick layer. It provides the building itself, and it does all the work. And, there's a whole field dedicated to studying cells. It's called cytology. So for the next few minutes, we're all going to be cytologists, getting to know the two most important cell types that exist. Okay. Now we're getting to the main event, the two cellular blueprints. Every single living thing is based on one of these two designs. We're talking about an ancient split that happened billions of years ago and basically set the stage for, all life as we know it. And for all the mind-blowing diversity of life on Earth, think about it. From giant redwood trees to the tiniest little microbes, it all, and I mean all of it, boils down to just two fundamental cell designs. That's it, just two. And this is a fantastic way to think about it. The prokaryote, it's like a simple, super efficient, open-plan studio apartment. Everything it needs is right there in one main room. The eukaryote, on the other hand, that's like a huge, complex mansion with tons of specialized rooms, and each room has a very specific job to do. Okay, so let's zoom in on the single biggest feature that separates that mansion from the studio. It all comes down to the cellular control center, the nucleus. This is what makes a eukaryote a eukaryote. Their cells have a true nucleus. It's like a secure vault for their genetic material. They also have a bunch of other little compartments called organelles, and each one handles a different task. You, me, trees, mushrooms, we're all eukaryotes. And then you have the complete opposite, the prokaryotes. These are tiny, single-celled organisms, and their defining feature is really what they don't have. They lack a true nucleus. Their genetic material just floats around inside the cell's main space. So what else is different? Let's put these two designs side by side and really compare what they've got going on inside. This is where you really see the difference between that simple studio and the complex mansion. This table really lays it out nicely. The nucleus? Nope, not in prokaryotes. But yep, front and center in eukaryotes. What about the genetic material? It's just floating free in prokaryotes, but in eukaryotes, it's all tucked away nice and neat inside that nucleus. And that organization is the key to everything. It's why prokaryotes are always single-celled critters, like bacteria. But the compartments in eukaryotes, that's what lets them team up and build complex, multicellular bodies like animals, plants, and us. But hey, don't ever mistake simplicity for weakness. The prokaryotes toolkit is incredibly effective. It's allowed them to thrive literally everywhere on the planet. So let's take a peek inside that toolkit. So every single prokaryote has four must-have parts. The plasma membrane is like the bouncer at the door, controlling what gets in and out. The cytoplasm is the jelly-like stuff that fills the cell. Then you've got the genetic material, their life's blueprint. And finally, ribosomes, which are these tiny factories that build proteins. That's the core survival kit right there. But a lot of them have some really cool optional upgrades. Some have a protective outer capsule, kind of like a shield. Others have flagella, these little whip-like tails that act like propellers to help them swim, or pili, which help them stick to surfaces. These add-ons make them absolute masters of survival in pretty much any environment you can imagine. And while they do come in a few different forms, you'll most often see two common shapes, the little round ones called cocci and the rod-shaped ones known as bacilli. All right, let's zoom back out for the big finish. We've seen all the differences, but why does this ancient split even matter? Well, it's the ultimate story of simplicity versus complexity. And it matters because these aren't just two designs. They're two totally different and totally successful strategies for winning in evolution. The prokaryote's simplicity makes it fast, efficient, and unbelievably adaptable. They absolutely dominate the world of the small. But the eukaryote's complexity, with all those specialized rooms in the mansion, that allows cells to work together, to specialize, and to build enormous complex things. So see, neither one is better. They just conquered the world in two completely different ways. Which brings us right back to where we began. Whether we're talking about a simple studio apartment or a sprawling mansion with a dozen specialized rooms, every story in biology starts with this one fundamental truth. It all begins with the cell. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Prokaryotes, in their simple, efficient form, have successfully dominated our planet for billions of years, way, way longer than complex creatures like us have been around. So what is it about eukaryotic complexity, our fancy mansion-like cells, that has made it such a powerful and successful strategy in its own right? Something to think about.